We need to turn on the microphone.
Oh, please turn on your microphones first. The red button should show up.
Yeah, there it is.
It's a little fickle. And
Oh, there it goes.
are you good?
Yep.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order of the Building Safety Committee, and we shall do roll call.
I have Pledge of Allegiance. We're not doing Pledge of Allegiance
I got roll
today?
call first on my agenda.
Okay. Commissioner Bunnick
Here.
and Commissioner Yoder.
Here.
Okay. All present, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up, we have approval of agenda. Are there any late additions that we need to put on here or anything to delete? Anyone? No? Okay, if we could have then a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So move.
Support. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I can see who's going to be chairman. Okay, do we have any public comments? Okay, there being none, we'll move to the election of chair. Do we have a motion or a nomination for chair?
Nominate Will Bunny.
Do you second that?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, Commissioner Bunning is declared chairman.
All right, so then we have approval of the July 11th minutes.
Thank you for being a great assistant.
I move that we approve the July 11th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. So we now have approved minutes. Then that brings us to the vehicle purchase as part of the 2026 budget process.
So I'm just looking to revisit this issue with people. When I first started the purchasing process with my department, I was told it would come before the committee, and if you all approved it, then it would go before full board. Given that we're at budget time, I'm looking for some guidance from you all. Do I have permission to start looking at what I want to do to continually cycle through the fleet, or do you want me to get some more specific information and present that to you all before I put it in the budget?
Is this going to be an added vehicle or is it a replacing?
I'm looking to replace 2 vehicles. I have 2 2022 Ford Rangers that I got in 2022. Yeah. But they're getting up there in mileage. One of them by this time next year will be over 100,000 miles. It's at 86.4 right now. And the other one is not that far behind it. So I'm just looking to be proactive with the fleet. The one with the higher mileage is actually sitting at serial repair right now because the transmission appears to be not doing well. So I'm just looking to be proactive. I know we had sat on the committee several years back. We talked about trying to do something every 3 years. This, if I get approved, will be purchased in the 4th year.
Right, it's 100,000 miles doesn't seem like that much of mileage. Is it the type of vehicle then? I mean,
if you all want me to wait, I can certainly wait. The thought process was that as we got closer to that number, we'd usually see an increase in repair costs.
Right.
But right now, we're not there until last week. So
do you have the money in the budget for new ones?
I could, yeah, with allocation of funds.
And it doesn't go into the motor pool, right? Or do yours? Yours are totally separate.
In the past, how much mileage did you have on the vehicles before you swapped them out, or?
We haven't really looked at any of that. They
Oh,
had
okay.
been leased vehicles, and then we had purchased the former sheriff's vehicles, but those didn't work the greatest
Right.
for us out in the field. So the Rangers were the first time we had the vehicles.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So I'm just looking for guidance. If you all want me to wait, I can do that. I probably want to explore the possibility of one because I have used to be a spare vehicle, the 2016 Ford Escape. But now that I have a position filled, I probably want to look at possibly replacing that one.
So are you looking at Ford Rangers again?
No, the other two vehicles I purchased 2 years ago, I think, are Toyota Tacomas.
Okay,
And those were just as well, if not better, than the Rangers.
right.
When you talk to the inspectors, those that have the Tacomas feel that they're better than the Rangers. And there was a better cost going with the Toyotas than they went to the Rangers.
Well, I mean, I would say one. I think,
I'm, yeah, I'm
you know,
totally
because that
favorable.
one that's a
Yep,
2016, I would say that,
Sure.
you know. And I mean, so, I mean, if you wanted to set up to purchase one of those to replace that, I think that'd be good, but I just think we should try a little longer with the Rangers.
That's fine.
You know. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, I'm just looking to basically strategize this and be proactive with the process. I probably would still keep the Escape as a spare
As a spare.
for now, just in case I have an issue I have right now.
Right. One fixed, yeah. So.
Is that something you need a motion for, or
Yeah, well, we recommend it to the board.
recommend?
I think we should.
And then,
Yep.
I guess from you all, do I then get the numbers to put into the budget, and then you all look at it as a whole board during the budget process, and then come whenever the budget's finalized, I come back to you for approval?
Nope, it'd be approved in the budget. Yep.
Yeah.
So once they make a recommendation to you, then you can put it in your budget, and then they'll see that with your budget, at budget process time.
Right, and then that's where the board would approve it.
Mhm.
So we don't have to go back and back and forth time and again.
Mhm.
I think that'd be right.
Yep, I think that would be my preference for sure.
So do you-
Yep, so I'll make a motion that we approve the building department to look into a vehicle purchase as part of the 2026 budget process.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you for that. So then that brings us then to the vehicle use by the new employee.
Okay, so, Mr. Bill Gross just hired on with us. Last week was his first week, and he is a great fit for my team. He has a lot of excitement for being here. He's worked as an inspector further south, but not in a team atmosphere, so he really loves the office dynamic we have. It's a little bit of adjustment for him when coming into the office, but as part of his hiring on, he does not live locally. His main residence is actually South Grand Rapids in Leelanau, but he has a cabin in Mansalona. So he commutes up here, lives in Mansalona, drives out here for the 3 days he works for us. He's requesting that he be allowed to take the county vehicle home on those days. They're a one income, one vehicle family. He understands that that's not the county's problem, it's his problem. I had talked to Mr. Dyer and Jen, the HR director, and she said in Grand Traverse County, they do have a policy. That policy is that every mile outside the county limits, we pay X amount of dollars back for those miles. That's what this calculation sheet is. He lives 37 miles outside of the county line, so that number you see per day is double. Goes into the county, goes back home. And then I've broken it further down from there per week. He's working 3 days a week. And then miles per pay period. I didn't have a chance to check with Kathy and see if there is a policy in place as to how frequently he needs to pay that back. If he could do it every pay period, that's his preference. It's a little easier for him to keep that cost. That all being said, because he's got one vehicle and the only income in the house, this is a big issue for him, and being able to pay that back, he understands it's not fully valuable, but there's a cost to it, because it's a vehicle. But he is asking if that number could be reduced closer to the lower number on that sheet, 20 cents a mile. He's looking at that as a way to balance out what he would eventually be paid for his buyout for health insurance benefits here. So he's looking to offset the cost. His thought is that the upper numbers in that chart are way too high. And given his expertise, the way he's fitting in with my team, that it took us several months to get him, I do not want to lose him. So I'm trying to find a way to make this work and what would be acceptable. I also understand this is a little bit of a can of worms that I'm opening, because this is not a policy currently in effect. It's a vehicle policy, but it's understood that that's more for within the county, and it's also at the discretion of the department head and the administrator. So I know I'm treading into uncharted waters, and even within my department, it's gonna open some stuff. But I'm trying to fight for this guy to stay here. Without saying it, he is letting me know this is a huge issue for him. So I'm looking for feedback from you all.
Well, I mean, what do we pay, for mileage? No,
70 cents.
that's what I mean, so we're not even close to it even on the top one. And that one's too expensive for me, so it just, I mean-
There are a couple different things, I know I'm not supposed to speak, but there's a couple things going on here. When a vehicle is taken home, other than the sheriff's department, that you, like Jerry used to have a maintenance vehicle that he took home, you pay FICA on those miles. So I think there probably will have to be a little bit more investigating on the finance side. I understand the HR side of it, but typically it's a benefit to take it home. So in that case, we pay FICA, he pays FICA on that benefit. So I'm not quite sure without diving a little bit more into it, like you're saying, how
but
you,
what about liability as well, and insurance? I mean, the county's, he's actually using a county car, and if there's an accident, and the longer you drive, the more you go, the more likely it can happen. I mean, I guess, I'm not, as much as I would like to, I just don't want to open that up. I have to-
Well, I'd like to see a policy in place if we did something like that. Without a policy, that's a little, I don't know.
Do you have Grand Traverse policy?
I don't, I went off of what Jen had told me about, and I'm, again, just wading into this.
Yeah.
This will be the second weekend, and I know I told him I'd do my best to tackle this and fight for it, so I'm kind of coming into it half blind myself. I don't know everything that's needed.
Well, can you get us that policy and we can take a look at it and see, So I think Steve's right here about, we really should have something in place before we say okay to it.
Oh yeah, I knew that this was gonna require reviewing the policy. It wasn't gonna be a one-person type of deal.
Okay. So, but I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I'm pretty skeptical about it.
Yeah, definitely something to look at, but I'd feel more comfortable if there was something in place that would cover everybody rather than just one individual, I guess.
And that means if you have it, we look at it, we'd have to meet again to do this, and then maybe bring it to the board if it's gonna, if we are gonna implement it.
Right.
So it's gonna be a
Will you available for a follow-up meeting on this issue?
Sure, I am.
Yeah, no, as long as I have a little bit of a heads up, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do my homework and get some additional information together for all of us, and then I'll get with the clerk's office to.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
I just hope it works out for him. But yeah, because I know it is hard to get an inspector.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and his argument was, looking at some of these numbers, maybe I don't even have the numbers right, which is totally a possibility.
Yeah, because we should look into FICA and whether there's
yeah,
anything
and I
else.
think our numbers are like 10 and 30 or something. If it's over 100,000 miles, it's 10 cents we charge your department. No, because you don't, you own it. So you would almost have, sorry, I'm talking out of turn. You would almost have your own policy.
Yeah,
What, for my department versus, oh. Okay. So-
That's not a bad thing. But you purchase and own your own, you're not part of the motor pool. So it is different. Or like the sheriff's cars, those are purchased, and that money that we charge per mile, the county charges, comes back into the motor pool to fund for another vehicle. This one, you're taking it from your proceeds and your revenues to purchase your vehicles. We've done that since Hagan started that. Because before, yes, we did lease vehicles. So yeah, I think it would be a policy written to your own, and maybe, again, sorry, I'm speaking in turn, you contact Grand Traverse County, Benzie County, the other counties, and find out what kind of program they have for their vehicles. Because, I mean, I know years ago, our building safety official said, these are mine, you can't have them, but I don't know if other departments are part of the motor pool, like in Grand Traverse County, they do have a leasing, but they don't lease for all vehicles, or they have a policy, but maybe getting other counties, your peers, do they have a policy on this, and what do they do, because you're right, I was just thinking about it, we don't have motor pool charges for you. Mm-mm. So really, between the board and you, as a building official and the administrator, you could create your own policy and make it, advantageous to your employees or your department, so that it works for all.
Well, and I'm just wondering if the difference, let's just say if we went with the 25 cents or something, would that be considered income for him, the other, 50 cents? Because it's going to be an expense to you paying, basically, because that's what they say it costs to have a vehicle, between insurance, and the purchase price and fuel and all that. So, and then would he buy the fuel to go there and back? It gets, or he gets 50 cents, does it count 50 cents as income to him? I don't know, but that's just a question I would have too. That makes sense, Steve?
Yeah, no, I just think we need something in writing or some sort of a plan in place, policy or whatever, and then go from there or something.
So would you all like to see if I can get some of the others, or do you want me to work with administration and finance to draft a policy? How far down the line do you want me to go?
Yeah, well, I don't think we want to try to reinvent it. I would rather see what Grand Traverse does, or Benzie, if they have something like that first, before trying to invent it ourselves.
Yeah, because if they have something that works, I mean, great, let's bounce off of that if they have no problem with that, so, yeah.
And that might,
How about a mixture of all of those?
And plus, it'd probably be easier for you instead of just writing something up on your own, if you could kind of wheel off of theirs, and see what works, and, because maybe you look at that and go, well, that wouldn't even work here, so it's at least a starting point where you get an idea, I think.
I just want to point out that this is a real indicator of why the housing issue in Leelanau County is important to the county. We haven't been able to find somebody that's a resident of the county. I mean, it's interesting, because this first I've heard that you say he lives in Wayland?
Yeah.
It's actually south of Grand Rapids by a considerable distance.
yeah.
And I understand he has a cottage up here, but that's how far afield we have to go to find employees. You're going to have to start getting very creative to actually recruit people to come and work here, because of the cost of living here. If you're going to get them from out of the county, if it turns out you need somebody from out of the county, you're going to have to get creative. In fact, the better thing may be to just pay him a car allowance and let him lease a car on his own, or buy a car on his own. You can lease a car for $200 a month. Not much of a car, frankly, but they'd be able to get something like that. That'd be one solution, and that would be income to him, just like it is for any other employee that has a car allowance, like the administrator. It's income, but it solves the problem as well. So,
Any other comments? All right, we'll move on then to affordable housing and permit fees.
So I don't have anything to present on this issue. It's been brought up by the full board before, so I'm just here to hear what you all want to start with, and I'm happy to come back with data, kind of view this as just a discussion and see what we can start.
Do you have any ideas?
Well, I guess and I know I'd sat down with you before, but I guess maybe just have an outline of like what some of the permit fees are, type of thing that we can pass on to the full board and have a discussion there, I guess, because from talking with you previously, it sounds like the fees itself are not gonna be a big game changer, in a lot of the housing stuff, but we can have some sort of numbers to back that up, and maybe there is some adjustments, that we can recommend or waive or whatever. But that's kind of, I guess, the only thing that I can see as far as fees go, like what is the structure as far as that goes, and is that enough to put a dent in anything? I don't know, something that that the whole board can see and go, this is what we have, this is an option to play with, type of thing. I don't know, that's kind of, I guess, the discussion that came up at the board, I guess, from my, what it sounded like from one commissioner that brought that up, is kind of like, you'd just like to see that structure, I guess.
Okay.
So I mean,
Are we talking just on the building side, or are we talking on the other side as well? Because the building fees are calculated differently. Electrical and mechanical, they're based on whatever items you're installing in the home. So there's a fee chart out there for those, and then the number of inspections that we do. On the building side, there's a cost per square foot, depending on what you're doing. So for example, whatever your foundation type is, there's a cost for that. If it's an unfinished basement, it's $20 a square foot. If it's a slab, it's $5 a square foot. Then you have your cost for the main floor living and second floor, if there is a second floor, that's $90 a square foot. Goes on and on and on. There's a breakout for garages, there's a breakout for covered porches, for decks, for screen porches. And then once you've done all of that, you're gonna add those numbers together to get your estimated cost of construction. And then there's a multiplier that was approved many years ago by the board. And was multiplied by that, and it was 0.50. To come up with the cost. So I can do all of that. I would have a harder time doing that for the trades. I can certainly come in with the copies of the applications, and I can run numbers from like the Habitat for Humanity homes that are under construction right now addressed this way. That's probably the best current example I have for reference points. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Yeah.
that would be very helpful, just to get an idea of what the permit structure broken down is for those houses. And I think to the extent we can get the information, even though they're not permit fees that we charge, they do have soil erosion fees, they do have the fees to hook up to, for inspections for, I don't know if the Justice Roads road project is on septic or,
They have health department do well and stuff.
yeah. So at least knowledge of what those are, even though we can't impact them directly, having knowledge of what those costs are would be helpful to the board, I think.
Okay, so I can bring copies of those to you guys as well. I think most of them like these.
because that'd be something we could directly, is exactly, I guess, what I think a lot of people are talking about, and that'd be something to work off of and see, what those actual costs were,
Right.
and then work off of that, maybe.
Because I
instead of
think
having a
they-
breakdown.
I think originally there had been discussion among some developers of affordable housing that there was in the neighborhood of $50,000 cost for, regulatory requirements. But that included things like a sewer connection fee, which can be as high as,
It's astronomical.
it can be $18,000 plus, I think, in Northport, depending on the nature of the sewer. So it was including things like that. But at least having an idea of what those numbers are, a number that goes beyond what the cost of labor and materials are to a builder would be helpful to know. Because even though we don't have direct impact on those costs, we can have an influence on those that charge them, and have a discussion on maybe there's a way to reduce those costs for affordable housing, even though they're not costs we directly impact. We just need to know what they are.
My thought about it was, we're really only talking about building, electrical, plumbing, heating, and that. If, I was thinking like if the house was 900 square feet or less, we'd have $1,000 fee for all of those. And I think that would be because I would say a house that size usually runs $1,500 to $1,700. So we would be giving people who build small homes, and that would include a garage, wouldn't include just a small house, the 900, or maybe it could be I wouldn't go over 1,000 for sure. I even thought maybe 800, but that would just be a flat fee for electrical, heating, plumbing, and building. And that would be the county's, motion toward affordable housing, to encourage it. And then we would encourage, whether it's the health department or the townships or anything, to reduce their fees as well for houses of that size. That's just, I don't see where we can do much more than that. We can't make them make any difference, but that would be, and I'm just wondering how that would affect, your income, and, because I know you depend on that for your department. But
It would be, because it's not gonna change the number of inspections we have to do on the home.
correct.
So I have to send a guy out there, same as if it was a 1,500 square foot home. I also have to break that fee out under each permit. I don't have a way to instate fees just by project. And then, I mean, I guess I could kind of do like a sample run of it and see how it looks.
I mean, I'm not saying that it'll save a lot of money, it's just to send a message, basically, because I don't see how we can bring it down anymore. You've got to pay for what you can, how many homes are 900 square feet or less? So maybe I was thinking is if we look at how many you do a year on an average of that size, and we'd see how much it would cost the inspections department, and maybe we could go with that to see if it was, wouldn't it make, the bottom line wouldn't be too devastating. That's just what I thought. I mean, because trying to go through to $2 or what, all the different things you go through, it would just say, oh, it's a 900 square foot, okay, or it's 850 square feet, it's gonna be $1,000 here. And then I don't know that you'd have to break it out. The only thing that would happen is if they have recalls back, and those would still have to be $50 each. If they come and they don't have things right, then that person would maybe have to pay another $50, whether it's electrical or plumbing or heating or building. So they can't just make it keep coming back and back.
We have to, I'm thinking on the trade side, when the inspectors go out, they're looking at that itemized chart, those are the things they're looking at.
Right.
So if I just have a flat fee in there without the items listed, they don't know what they're looking at.
Well, maybe they would have to maybe still fill out that form.
Yeah, and then I can override the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think about that, but they would have to do that. I mean, they would have to fill it out, but it'll have to say down under 900 square feet, so it's, they would put 0 on there for that, because it would just all come in the building fee. But it would, and especially if it was on the folder there, that would encourage people to look at a house under 900 square feet.
So are you saying 1,000 square feet is the cutoff, or so homes that are 1,000 square feet and less?
I would say under, they have to be less than 1,000 square feet.
My question is, I know some townships regulate on the square foot of the house. Is there some townships that require more or no?
And every township has a minimum.
Right.
I see a lot of the smaller ones. I think Leelanau Township is the only one that allows what they call tiny homes.
Okay.
I see 2 up there.
Because I just know, based on my experience with the planning commission, I know Solon Township has the smallest, and they allow 400 square foot houses. But I know some, I don't know, like Leland, Suttons Bay, or some of those, because I know some townships, just make sure that they fall in that criteria.
Right, and I'm pretty sure they all do.
Okay.
I think 800 is about the smallest, or the large, what would you say, the smallest?
The largest small
The largest
house.
small house. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say if it's saying 1,000,
Would,
put them on the other side.
yeah,
Most townships, I think would probably
Okay.
be okay with that. I mean, without getting into the weeds of every zoning requirement.
right. Well, and I know that Cleveland had it at 1,000, and then they pushed it to 750. You know, they reduced it because they wanted to encourage that. So I believe that, at least what I read. So that's just my idea. I don't know, you know, if anybody thinks that that's okay or, you know, but I think that way we don't have to go through all the, you know, different kinds of phases and everything. If we can do that, and then we're putting something out there that the county says, we want to encourage it.
I could do a little homework for both of those. So I'm here to come back with copies of the fees and information on the Habitat homes as well as the other permits and fees related to the projects. And then to run some numbers to explore this less than 1,000 square foot home, flat fee of $1,000.
And maybe it has to be a little more, maybe it can be less. I'm not saying, that's just what I thought, you know, but that, I mean, if it can be less than that, $900 or something, that would be great too, but if it has to be 11, I mean, we can work, I'm willing to open to that. I don't want to say it has to be $1,000 or.
Well, let's say there was a house that was, you know, 900 square foot, no garage, no basement, would those fees even exceed 1,000?
I have to look at the numbers.
Because that's something to even, you know,
Yeah.
even look at in there, because maybe, you know, if we, you know, maybe put some stipulations in there that if it is less than this, then, you know, paid no basement, no
Yeah.
garage type of thing, put those stipulations in there, then the fee's lower type of thing, versus just a blanket
Yeah.
statement type of thing, I don't know, option, I guess.
Minimum, or the maximum fee would be $1,000.
If you fall within this criteria type of thing, right?
Okay, so I can run the numbers both ways and then come back to you guys with.
We
a little
really
more
appreciate that.
information on that.
I think you're gonna also want to consider whether building safety really needs to bear the cost of this program. Should you, you know, perhaps create a separate fund that building safety draws the difference between the amount of the reduced permit fee and what the fee might have been, so they don't really lose anything in this process. I think you want to look at that. And the other thing that I would encourage is the idea, small housing is not always affordable. I think you want to look at providing these incentives to developers that are actually doing something to provide for a longer term use of that property as affordable housing. For example, entities that are community land trusts, or entities that are creating rental units, that sort of thing, that are committed to remain committed for at least a period of time to remain in affordable housing. So.
No, it's a fair point, because I did, and somebody stopped by my business one time, and he owned a tiny home, and, you know, it was a contractor that builds those, and he was charging upwards of 400,000.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's not, we're not winning anything there, you know, so, but I think, to the point of the fees, then I think, you know, instead of putting it all on you guys, I think the township should pay a price too, because they're requiring fees to get a use permit to build these houses too, you know, and that should be brought into the equation too. Obviously, that's no jurisdiction we have over here that you do even, but that's an awareness that needs to be out there too, then I think, instead of just you footing the brunt, if there is something like that, I think the township should be accountable to them.
Yeah. Maybe we can get the planning department to do a survey of what the land use fee, for example, the land use fee in Northport, I'm familiar with, is $50. It's, you know, to get essentially zoning approval to do a building, and they can't build. The building safety department won't even consider your permit unless you've got the zoning approval from the local municipality. So that's the first thing you got to do anyways. That's the kind of thing I think that for an appropriately affordable housing development, I think Northport would be willing to waive those fees, and other townships perhaps should be willing to do that as well.
did reach out to some of my other colleagues on this issue too. I went back from two before our meeting. One gentleman just said to make sure that we're all considering what our definition of affordable housing would be. They had an entity in Charlevoix County that tried to put affordable housing. They were actually large, high-end condominiums right on the waterfront. So the other gentleman pointed out that they have a lot of entities they work with, similar to Habitat for Humanity, but the homes themselves are still valued well above what most folks would consider affordable. So entities that, as Mr. Dyer said, can kind of bridge that gap helps too. Because while this is a great thing, permitting fees are really going to drop in the market. It's not changing the cost of materials, it's not changing the cost of land, it's not changing the cost of your mortgage or any of that other stuff. So it is something that's a big
Well, that's a problem in Leelanau County, because I think the most costly thing in the county here is the land it sits on. So that's just a problem we gotta, I don't know, you're not gonna fix that with fees, so.
You're looking, that's the crazy part. If you're looking at new construction with, fit and finishes that most people would accept, in Leelanau County, you're looking at a $500,000 house. $500,000 if it's a 1,000 square foot house to build new now. That's the real crazy thing.
We're doing the very bare minimum. I've had a couple of homes come in lately where it's the foundation and it's the house. There's no porches, there's a simple landings that are required, there's no garages, it's a roof over my head. Whatever square footage I feel most comfortable with, it's scraping it down to.
Right, and that's really what I'm, seeing as affordable homes, and that if we can help that out. Send that message. I know that we're not gonna, all the things that they've talked about are all issues that are part of it, but it isn't like we're gonna make it affordable, it's just say we're trying to help.
Yeah.
That's really that's what I thought mine is. And they can, like they said, they can make a 1,000 square foot house, a $500,000 or more. Or you can, they can make it much, much less, half that, I believe. Once they have the land. So any other comments on that?
No.
So that brings us then to discussion items.
Nothing.
I did get one more email from the house that I gave you that other one earlier. And the question was, is if we have these rules, can't a inspector go at night with a deputy and just knock on the door and look in to see if they're violating, and staying there at night and see if there's a bed in there?
I would say no.
Yeah.
I really don't feel comfortable with going that route. I have options within the act itself, which is where we get a lot of our language beyond just what's in the printed code itself. But that feels too much pushing the envelope there, like beyond my authority.
Yeah. 'Cause that's what he said, how come we have these ordinances, but we can't enforce them?
You can enforce them, but only to the extent that I have the authority to do so. I mean, this is something that happens all the time. I told you I have.
I know it.
Elsewhere. We have individuals that complain about what their neighbor's doing in the state of their yard, but you're gonna make me do this. Okay, but yeah, you violated the code just as much as that person did. So it's still stewing in my mind if there's anything else I can do to help with that specific circumstance.
Okay.
I don't have anything. I'll try to reach out to that specific
Well,
property owner again and just.
And that's what I said, we don't know that they're violating, so you can't really do that kind of thing. But how do you prove it? But he senses that they're violating the code, and so he wants something done.
And they may be, but I don't have
Yeah,
the
but we
proof to
don't
do
know.
that. And I talked about some of the ideas I had,
Yeah.
but without that evidence, I can't take that step. They have the certificate. of
Because
occupancy
you would think
laws.
then we might get sued if nothing's happening, if we did that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought
don't
too.
want to open the county up to a risk like that.
Exactly. All right. Any other discussion items? Any public comment? Any board member comment?
No, just want to thank Amber for the
Thank
work.
you.
Hopefully we didn't overwork you and give you too much, so appreciate it.
So good information for me, so I appreciate your time.
We are adjourned.
When would we like to schedule a